As part of an introduction, most of you know who I am, but for the benefit of those who might watch this later on the video, my name is Steve Schilling. I'm the Assistant Executive Director for SWANCC. I am a professional engineer who specializes in solid waste management. I was hired by the agency in August of 1997, so been here for quite a while. Before that, I had previously done work on some of the SWANCC projects dating back to 1991, and even all the way back to 1987, I have been working for municipalities. So a pretty long term career in municipal government and working in solid waste. Moving on, this presentation is about the operational history of the agency. Initially, the agency had intended to have 2 transfer stations and a bale fill that they would operate. If you go back even a little bit further, a compost facility was even contemplated to be part of that system. Right now, through the years, we've gone down to just operating the one facility, the Glenview transfer station. Now, the Glenview transfer station is a 49-acre site purchased for $1.6 million in 1992. Briefly, we go through the groundbreaking in 92. The construction occurred and the facility was opened in 1994, February 1st, with just 6 communities delivering their garbage. I believe that first year we got only 17,000 tons of garbage. So we had quite a large facility handling a very small amount of garbage. It took nearly 3 years to get all the members delivering garbage, but by January 1st, 1996, all of the member communities were delivering their garbage to the transfer station. The total development cost was $12.32 million for the building. Within the 49-acre site, 7.1 acres were permitted with the IEPA for the transfer station. The building, if you haven't been there, is quite large. It has a total area of 99,200 square feet, floor area. The tipping floor can accommodate 12 packer trucks unloading at once. That's kind of a number that was from early documentation that we had. I think we can probably be tipping a few more than that now. We've made some changes with the conveyor pits, so that opened up some more room, and we'll talk about that later. At the time when it was built, we were capable of baling garbage at a rate of 110 tons per hour. And Groot Recycling and Waste Services was selected as the site operator, and that was in 1993. They've been the site operator since that happened. I will say also that in our fiscal year 2012 financial statements that were looked at tonight, it places the value of the transfer station at $10.75 million, which is the depreciated value of the asset and the improvements on the asset. So Groot's our long-term operator. So let's look at that first contract that was signed. The 5-year contract was signed in July 27th, 1993. The term of the contract began January 1st of 1994, and I believe it was just a month later after that that the waste was started delivered. The contract provides for operations and maintenance of the facility, transportation to the landfill, and disposal at the landfill. Initially, disposal was provided by Waste Management at Green Valley Landfill, and the first year fee paid to Groot was $33 per ton. And we're going to be talking about things on a per ton basis, and there's basically 2 numbers that we'll talk about. The fee that's paid to Groot, or what we call the contractor operating charge, and then also the operations and maintenance tipping fee, which is what you as members pay to SWANCC to process your garbage. Shortly after operations started, I believe it was about 2 years, when the agency decided that there needed to be some revisions to the contract. Things were operating well, and we're moving along, but there were some outside influences that caused some things that needed to be changed. One of the things was the closing of the Green Valley landfill. We had to find new landfill to go to. So Waste Management, who was the subcontractor on the contract, offered up Pheasant Run Landfill in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So this contract kind of contemplated that change. It also looked at, okay, now we have some experience in operating the landfill. Let's also look at how we can make things a little bit smoother and cheaper contractually. The new long-term contract was effective in '95. The term was extended until April 30th of 2014. There were mutual options to terminate on April 30th of 2004. Disposal again was moved to Pheasant Run Landfill. This contract also allowed redirection of up to 20% of the waste to an alternate facility. We had intended to have more than one transfer station, though some of the western communities were trying to see if there were some ways that we could shorten the trip to a transfer station. So this contract left open that option if we could find alternates that we could take the garbage to from those western communities. But in exchange for that, Groot wanted the first right of refusal on that so that they could keep the tonnage within the facility if they matched the price that was achieved. Which kind of brings back into play the Rolling Meadows transfer station, which was initially contemplated as part of the system. The Rolling Meadows transfer station in 1992 and 93, SWANCC paid a total of $300,000 for an option to purchase the property. I believe it was from the city of Rolling Meadows. SWANCC permitted the facility with the IEPA. And then what happened was the agency decided not to pursue the facility and actually let the option expire. In fiscal year 2000, SWANCC agreed with BFI to redirect 70,000 tons per year to the transfer station at a rate of $36 per ton. What that did was lowered the rate for those member communities. It was a lower rate, and there was a discussion at both the executive committee level and the board level as to how to allocate those lower rates amongst the members. I think in the end what happened was the members decided to allocate that money and savings equally over all of the membership as opposed to just those members who were delivering. Groot eventually agreed to match the rate and pay transportation savings to SWANCC to retain the tonnage at the Glenview transfer station. And over the next 9 years, the Rolling Meadows transfer station credits saved SWANCC $9.75 million, or $4 per ton, on the tipping fees that the members paid. I think one thing to notice here is that the credits were paid on the monthly bill. It essentially worked its way through the budget process, so we were able to lower the tipping fee that the members paid. And I think what this shows is there was a tangible benefit to having two transfer stations. $10 million of savings, basically $1 million a year, was a significant amount of money, and it shows a tangible benefit that the two transfer stations had. So the initial plan, I think, was a good plan that showed that the area has enough space to justify two transfer stations. One thing that happened, though, after those 9 years of those credits is that they expired. And we looked at a situation where we were going to see $4 per ton increase in the operations and maintenance transfer station. We were looking at the high cost of baling that was occurring, high cost of baler maintenance that was occurring. There was other maintenance issues at the transfer stations, and there was a sense that there was going to need to be a change in the disposal site. This precipitated the negotiations on the second revised Groot operating contract. This contract set a new, or was a new long-term contract effective May 1st, 2007. The term was extended until April 30th, 2015, and it provided for disposal savings of approximately $4 per ton in fiscal year 2010. That's kind of getting that $4 per ton back that we were going to lose from the Rolling Meadows transfer station credits. The contract allowed for the conversion of the facility to a top load operation by removing the balers. It provided operational savings of an additional $4 per ton if and when the top load conversion was complete. And there was a couple other issues that it provided. It created the recycling incentive program that we currently have, and it required the acquisition of compressed natural gas trucks for recycling collection. As a footnote, I would say that shortly after this contract was signed, the disposal site was switched to Winnebago Landfill. That occurred September 24th, 2009. The contract kind of anticipated it, but what really drove that change was Wisconsin increasing their landfill tax from roughly $4 per ton to over $13 per ton. Basically, Waste Management was going to default on their subcontract and was going to walk away from the contract. So it was better to negotiate a change in disposal site than to have to fight a battle of a contract default. That then brings us to the GTS modifications. Once we had the contract in place and we had the structure that we could make changes to the transfer station, we spent a significant time looking at what's going to be the best way to operate the transfer station fiscally and both operational-wise regards to waste flow. We looked at a significant expenditure that was going to be needed to replace the worn conveyors, approximately $800,000 to replace those conveyors. So we developed a plan to remove the balers for a top-load operation. Camosi Construction was awarded a construction contract in fiscal year 2007, and construction was completed by April 30th, 2008 for a total of $1.47 million. That was a little bit ahead of schedule, so we were able to see the $4 per ton operational savings triggered in fiscal year 2009, probably 1 year ahead of schedule that we would see. An additional benefit to doing this is we increased the loading capacity of the facility to 735 tons per hour from 110 tons per hour, significantly. I've seen the equipment there load a complete transfer trailer in 6 minutes, which is, we were loading transfer trucks in 20 minutes with the balers. So it's a significant improvement in the throughput of the operation. So what does this do for us fiscally? Here's a chart that kind of shows three things. We have our operations and maintenance tipping fee, which is the red line. You can kind of see we started out low. Early on in the life of the agency, I believe a lot of this was subsidized. There were some operational costs taken out of the bond issues. So we subsidized that a little bit on the low end. But then you get to a point where you see in fiscal year 97, we see a flat line. And what occurred in that, and we actually go underneath the what the contract operator charge was. So Groot was charging us a certain amount, which is the green line there. But our tipping fee to you was less than that. And how did that happen? Well, it's kind of an anomaly of the project use agreement. When we collect money from you, we have a true-up. And that money trues up. Basically, we have to collect more money when you over-deliver. However, the project use agreement doesn't have a mechanism for returning excess fixed cost charge. Your debt service charge that was charged to you, we collected from you, even though we covered all of the debt service costs in the committed tonnage. So we had this excess revenue that we were receiving from you. So basically what happened is that would roll into the next year's operational budget. So we were able to take that revenue that you paid in the prior year and use it for operation on fixed costs and use it for operational costs. And that's why that red line dips below the green line for those years through, I believe it's 2008. After 2008, you kind of see that our operations and maintenance fee just kind of tracks above what the contractor operator charge is. The difference in that being the administrative cost of the agency, staff, and the excess programs that we do. One thing that I did here then finally is if you look at the blue line on the bottom there, I took the initial Groot contractor operator charge and escalated that at what the actual CPI numbers were for those years. And you can see that we had a fairly steady CPI. We didn't have a lot of big swings and drops in CPI, other than I believe it's 2008 and 2009 that we had saw it go up, but then it came actually back down. That average over the entire operating life was 2.26%. So we saw a rather steady 2.26% increase in CPI. I will have you know that right now our escalators in the current contract have a minimum of 2.5%. So when we look at history, our history of what CPI actually is less than what the minimum is. So that's one of the reasons why we may need to look at the contract going forward to true up and see where those charges fall. I did look at going forward, had to make some very broad assumptions going forward. I escalated the contractor operator charge at 2.25%, just based on history. I looked at the costs and the fees and said they're independent of the amount of waste delivered to the transfer station, because that's what that contract operator charge is. We do see some impact because of administration and the extra costs or the added programs. If we under-deliver, then we see that increasing the per ton costs. But I thought that those might be negligible as we're starting to see a rebound in the amount of tonnage coming up. And then I kind of factored in a little bit of a deduction. We tend to see about every 5 years that when we renegotiate the contracts, we see a correction kind of in the prices. So just kind of, you know, a guesstimate, I said we're going to see a $2 per ton correction factored in every 5 years. And that gives us the final plot, which really isn't all that great a plot. It shows a straight line for the contractor operator charge. But really what it does is it shows you a magnitude at the end in 2033 when the project use agreements end. We are looking at approximately $79 per ton tipping fee or $75 per ton contractor operator charge if CPI is steady at 2.25%. And you'll see with the $2 per ton corrections, we might be able to do a little bit better than that if we just go forward operating the same way we've been operating and landfill the waste, operate the transfer station as a top load operation, and keep our administrative programs roughly the same. I will say by comparison, we will our total tipping fee that we've ever had in the life of the agency was in fiscal year 1998, and you as members paid a total of $71.98 per ton. Now that's the operations and maintenance cost plus the fixed cost charge that was imposed there. So, but that gives you kind of a magnitude of where we are. We won't have any more debt going forward from 2015. So what you will be paying will be the operations and maintenance charge. There won't be any fixed cost charge.